All right, welcome Workit community. Welcome to everyone joining us on Zoom and everyone streaming live on YouTube, and happy holidays. My name is Max Backer and I am your community manager and host for this afternoon's event. Our chat is open and live on both our Zoom platform and our YouTube platform. So please say hello in the chat if you are able. This is how to work it through the holidays. And today I am joined by an amazing panel of my colleagues here at Workit from multiple different departments, and all of us proudly in recovery. And we are here to show you the ways to thrive during the holiday season, not just survive. So first up, Brock Vestrom is the product owner for Workit Health's member-facing and provider applications. Service to others and cultivating connections are keys to his recovery. Brock has a background in software product development and agile delivery team environments. Thank you for being here, Brock. All right, let me head over to Lita. Lita Farragon is a certified peer specialist. She uses her lived experience, strength, and hope to encourage and support our members. Lita believes that recovery is possible for everyone, and you are very supported on your journey here at Workit Health. Coming down the line over here to John Twork. John Twork is the drug screening coordinator. He has had multiple roles within the organization throughout his almost 3 years here at Workit, and he also teaches at Eastern Michigan University. As someone in long-term recovery, John is passionate about providing industry-best customer service and eradicating the stigma of substance use disorder. Welcome, John. And let's see, coming down the line here to Carrie. Carrie DeVilliblis is a dedicated mental health and recovery advocate. As Vice President of Client Success, she combines her years of experience in healthcare technology and client services, along with her personal passion for recovery, to provide an excellent client experience here at Workit, fueled by a passion for mission-driven work, patient-led design, and the radical belief that anything is possible. Welcome, Carrie. And let's see here. Please welcome Suzanne Henley. Suzanne is a recovery counselor at Workit Health. She has been in the recovery field for 12 years and is also a person in long-term recovery. Suzanne states, "I am extremely lucky to have a career I am so passionate about. Helping people find their way through addiction is everything to me." Thank you, Suzanne. And last but never least, please welcome Chris McMullen. Chris is the lead care navigator at Workit Health. He enjoys hiking, cooking, and hanging out with his dog. Same. Chris is passionate about helping members get enrolled in Workit and being part of their first step towards freedom from addiction. So y'all, I'm going to ask these amazing folks some questions about how they work it through the holidays, and I will save some time at the end for a Q&A. So if you have a question, please note that you can ask questions via the Zoom Q&A panel within your platform or on the YouTube chat, and we will bring them to our panelists. And so before I begin, for both our audience and for us, I want to offer 2 techniques real quick right off the bat for managing holiday stress from one of our care specialists, Polly, who is very much inspired by her Qigong practice. She offers us 2 techniques. One is breathe, right? That built-in panic attack thwarter of our breath. Okay, so those deep breaths, all of us on the panel, go ahead. Deep breath in and then out. Now, note that breathing in is always good, but it's really in that exhalation where you get that yummy heart rate decrease upon that exhalation that provides that kind of calming natural effect. So again, breathe in and out. You see, I'm even using my hand to kind of measure that exhalation. And I think you could probably hear it when I do that exhale. I'm doing kind of a controlled, audible breath. And usually just me can hear it. So you can totally do it in the Target checkout line. And the other one is something called calming the inner baby, which sounds amazing as it is. And that's real easy. That's just placing your hand over the belly. It's a gentle pose of comfort, security, and protection. It doesn't look defensive, right? So I don't know about y'all, but I'm one of those people that likes to, just because I'm uncomfortable, cross my arms over myself. And so holding on to the belly is actually a really calming thing to do. And so, as Polly says, when the outside world is intoxicated, reactions are unpredictable. So preparing by comforting the sober self is vital. And that's really what this panel is all about, learning new ways or being reminded of old ways to comfort our sober selves as we go into the holidays. So Polly has a Recovery in Motion peer group on Tuesdays from 1 to 1:45 if you'd like to check out more breathing techniques and more from the Qigong practice. I feel better. So here we go. First off, I would like to start with a story. And Suzanne, I'm going to come around to you because I believe you're going to kick us off with a fantastic story about your first sober holiday. You know, what was it like? Did you prepare? Expectations versus reality? How did your first holiday go?
Hey, everybody. Thank you very much. I don't know how fantastic the story is, but when I saw the question, I felt like my story is definitely interesting. So I got out of treatment like December the 12th. I was in inpatient treatment. And so my first holiday was Christmas, but I didn't really, I spent it with close family and friends. It was okay. Like it felt really weird because like even when you're around supportive people and everything's going really well, it can still feel awkward when you're just like newly in sobriety. I know I just felt like I always tell people it feels like you're sunburn all over. Like you just kind of like are really sensitive to everything. And I felt that way. People ask questions and you like don't really want to answer them. But Christmas was okay. So, but when I thought of it, I thought the thing that sticks out for me is my first recovery in New Year's. My New Year's Eve came up and I hadn't planned anything. So like I didn't plan anything. I didn't think of anything. I was like, I want to be sober, but that was pretty much where it began and ended. And like all my friends like went out, like they all like went out and did their New Year's Eve thing. And they were all drinking, of course, going to bars, going to clubs, doing their thing. My husband worked, he worked in a bar, so I wasn't going to go spend with him. It's like, you don't get off New Year's Eve if you're like a bar manager, right? Like in Austin, no way. Then I was like alone and I was like, holy crap, what do I do now? And I was just feeling really scared and really alone. I don't know why. I know why, because like, I wanted to go out. I felt really left out. And I hadn't established any like recovery community yet, you know, it was a few weeks out. And so, in treatment, I went to a 12-step based treatment and I was like super like adamantly against like the 12 steps. And I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. You know, that's silly. But New Year's Eve, I was like, holy smokes, what do I do? And so I went online and I found a meeting because it was literally the only thing I had, right? Like it was the only option I felt like I had. And I found a meeting and I don't know, it was probably about like 9 o'clock at night. I went to the meeting and I just sat down and I exhaled, like the breathing exercise. I exhaled and it was a newcomers meeting. And so people there like were feeling the same way I was feeling. And it kind of makes me emotional just think about it. And it's been a long time. But like people shared and I just felt like, oh my gosh, there are other people like me. I felt really comfortable. as comfortable as you can in like a month's worth of sobriety under your belt. And I just felt really okay. And I kept going to meetings and I did that. And it really helped me in my early recovery. And the reason I thought I should share this story is because it's like a lesson in the fact that like you can make mistakes and not have a plan, and you can do things wrong or like not by the book, and you still are going to be okay if you just really want it and you want to try, you want to continue, and you stay open to trying things that maybe you didn't think were going to work for you in the beginning. And that kind of like really just solidified that like, oh, okay, I need to be open-minded in my recovery. I need to take suggestion from other people, and I need to be like I need to give myself grace to allow myself to make mistakes. And so that's why I wanted to share, because I don't think that anything goes the way we want it to go. And I just want to give everybody that idea that like, just because you have expectations, they may not go that way, but they're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. So that's why I wanted to share. Thank you for letting me share my story. Max, you're on mute.
Rookie move, y'all. I was on mute. No, I love that, because one word you said in particular was grace. Give yourself grace this holiday season to make mistakes, to feel one way about AA, but be really glad that they have meetings every day and even on those days, because I imagine exactly, even as uncomfortable as we all feel in that early sobriety game, being around your people at that moment was probably extraordinary. So keep your mind open and give yourself grace. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Oh, this is great. All right, well, let's keep going because we've got a lot to cover. One thing we talk a lot about is holiday triggers. We tell our members to prepare for holiday triggers. We tell ourselves. Triggers can kind of be a buzzword, so let me give you kind of an easy explanation. Triggers are sensory reminders that cause painful memories or certain symptoms to resurface. And so, Chris, I am going to come to you, and I was wondering if you could, talk about some holiday triggers for you and how you prepare for them as you go into the holiday season.
Yeah, thanks, Max. Hearing that triggers the sensory reminders and painful memories for myself, I know those painful memories have always been built off a loss. Personally, I have all these memories. My biggest memory is my grandparents. I have these memories at Christmas with them, and my grandpa used to dress up as Santa and give out gifts to all the kids, and seeing their faces, and and that memory of them, and when they passed, it was very difficult. It was very difficult and triggering in the sense that I felt well, I missed them. It wasn't the same anymore, right? Like my normal reality was not there. I feel like that has always been a huge trigger for me. I think the other thing that's really big, and I haven't drank in 5 years, but when I think of the holidays, I can't help but to like glare in on pictures of family pictures and see the goblets on the table, for the alcohol. I don't know why. I can't think of New Year's without thinking of that toast that you're supposed to do, and that's really, that says a lot at 5 years of not drinking, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I love the word expectations. We all have all these expectations of what can be at the holidays, getting the best gift, having this wonderful dinner, turkey's not going to be burnt, it happens. And, I think one thing when I really sit and think about triggers, for myself, I have a seasonal depression that just kind of comes. I'm not at my happiest all the time at the holidays. Honestly, the holidays aren't my most favorite time of year because of the memories that do come up. And I love that, grace, being kind to yourself. taking a little bit of extra self-care. I think that that is, you know, you're allowed to feel your feelings. And I think that that is, they're true feelings. I think that's very important around the holidays for myself. So.
Chris, absolutely. And I thought it was really interesting for you to point out that sometimes the holiday is the trigger is the awareness of loss, is the awareness that some loved ones are gone. And I think sometimes, you know, we know that on some level, but it isn't until the holidays and we're around family and those childhood traditions might come up that we really might feel that loss. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that, and also that it's not your favorite time, like just knowing yourself that well, that this isn't your favorite time, and that maybe you do a little you know, like extra sweetness for yourself. In the chat, we've got a holiday trigger that is Christmas songs. Absolutely. Some can really take you back to a certain time and place, and that goes for all songs. So, you know, holiday songs get played on repeat, and like, you know, so, you know, being able to step aside or step out of the room and make that exit plan, which we've been talking about, which we'll talk about later, in the case that some of those come up. Any other folks have some holiday triggers that they'd like to share before I go on that came up?
Yeah, I would say, Max, not a particular trigger, but I think it's people newly in recovery. It's just, you need to know that your first holiday, you're going to feel a lot of feelings. And for me, this was new. I was shocked to realize that there have been people feeling feelings their entire lives. And it was a shocking revelation to me when I was at my first holiday party and I was sitting in the corner and everybody was asking me, "How are you doing, Carrie?" And people are walking around with their glasses of wine and they're having conversation. And I was like, "I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." I was not fine. I was not fine. But I was so used to just stuffing things down and using alcohol or whatever other substance to medicate myself, to numb. And then when you take away that substance, you actually start feeling feelings. And that's when you start to get triggered. And so for me, that was a real learning lesson, is that you start to experience things. And so you just know that that's going to happen. And so for me on that holiday evening, and I know I've shared this story internally before, Christmas Eve, you know, my family's all there, everybody's sharing a great time, everybody's drinking and laughing and having a good time. And I'm sitting there in the corner and I'm like imploding, literally, right? Going, I'm fine, everybody, I'm fine, everything's fine. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm not fine. I don't know what to do. And I like found the closest relative and I just like locked eyes with him. And I was like, I have to go. And he was like, he saw me, right? And he could see in my eyes. And he was like, yes, go, you have to go. And I bolted for the door and I just ran out of that house. Like I just left the party. I left grandma. I left everybody left. I just left. And I got in the car and I drove. You know, Suzanne said she found an AA meeting. I found a place that brought me spiritual grounding. It was Target. And I sat in the parking lot there, right? And I sat in the Target parking lot and I had a good cry and a good scream. And then I went inside and I bought soy candles and I ate, you know, a lot of chocolate. And that was my Christmas Eve. But in that moment, I realized a few things. First, that, you know, traditions don't need to be what they were when you're newly in recovery or at any point in your recoveries, that you can make your own traditions. And that really, when you are feeling triggered, when you were in that moment, when you were in that red, I gotta get out of here, you need to do whatever you need to do to protect yourself and to protect your peace and to protect your recovery, whatever that looks like for you. And don't worry about disappointing mom or grandma or, you know, Uncle Bob. They're going to be okay. Those people can take care of themselves, you know. And I'll tell you, when I came back to that party, I don't know, an hour or so later with, you know, my soy candles and my chocolate, I don't even think anybody noticed I had been gone. Honestly, I walked back. I was calm. I was much more centered. I came back to the party. I enjoyed myself. And I did what I needed to do in that moment to take care of me. That was what I needed to do in that moment to take care of me. Maybe like Target and candles is not your jam. You need to do what you need to take care of you. Go outside, call your sponsor, call a friend, whatever you need to do in those moments for the holiday when you're feeling feelings and feeling triggered to take care of yourself. And I think that's really important.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much, Carrie. And I think that soy candles and Target is a universal love language for most of us of self-care. So, I mean, yes. And the amount of parking lots I've cried into, really, we could probably go head to head.
Thank you.
And so I appreciate that. And also coming in from chat, just so that we can call out some triggers that all of us, are experiencing. Pictures of lost ones, like so pictures of folks you've lost, being alone, all these kind of holiday triggers. And so I'm going to go to someone who I know has plans and self-care strategies for such things, and that is Brock. Could you share a little bit about what you do to prepare for the holiday triggers and how you take care of yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Max. I've been of course I've always had plans. Like in fact, I've got a whole note like document of notes of things that I'm going to say. And of course, Suzanne says something about how plans change, and then I'm quickly changing my notes. And then, Chris is talking about it's okay to have grief and loss, and that's okay if your traditions are, you're not expected to have the same traditions, or you're not going to partake in the same traditions. Completely okay. And then Carrie says protect your sobriety. Absolutely. Like, you can just take all of your plans and say, this is exactly how Christmas is going to work for me, and walk through that door, and those plans can go out the window. But to know that you can still stand in your, in your 2 feet and in your power, essentially, and say, like, at the end of the day, what's most important to me is my recovery and my sobriety, because it's the foundation for everything else. And for me, it's like, whenever I go places, especially if I'm going places that have alcoholic drinks, my strategy is always to understand and check myself at the door. What's the objective of why I'm here? What is the objective of for me to be at Christmas this year? It's to be present with my family. It's to show up after years of not showing up. Yeah, physically I was there, but mentally I was really not there for many, many years. And so, I know that's for me, that is something where I check myself to make sure that this is the reason why I'm here, and to also give myself permission to leave, or to excuse myself from situations where my objectives are not being met, or my potential sobriety is compromised. And that has nothing to do with how my mom or my dad feels, or even if they feel great or bad about it, that really is irrelevant. But for me, what matters the most is that I don't pick up, because I know, as I've heard other people say, I've rolled that tape forward. I have enough experience to know how this is going to play out, and I don't want that to play out again. Yeah. And so, another thing, like there's a couple like tricks or tips that I have used over the years is, find the fountain of youth, as I'd like to say before, which is if you're going to a holiday party, typically the most innocent folks there are going to be the children. Or if there's no children, find a pet. Or even if there's no pet, maybe you've got a game that you played as a child that wasn't associated to drinking, or drugs, or an alcoholic lifestyle, that you could pull out, and to a certain extent, find that fountain of youth. And then other things like getting your oxygen. We all need. We did the breathing exercise at the beginning. Oxygen is key to my sanity and my recovery as well. And finding the moments where you can step outside, go for a walk, It's going to be really hard for me even to do that, because it's going to be, I think, something like 10 below on Christmas Day or something like that. But I'm going to still go out and bundle up, go for that walk, and get that kind of moment to myself to kind of reflect, and then also to recharge. It also helps to, so people come into the holidays with different different stages of their sobriety. And I will say my first Christmas and my first holidays, I was only 2 months sober, and I didn't actually tell anyone that I was sober in my family. I wasn't ready. I had too much fear. I was shameful about my activities. I had said was going to get sober for years and years and years, and I kept falling on my face. And I couldn't quite bring myself to tell someone, but I did tell a trusted friend, and several friends actually. And I did have that person on the end of a phone line that I could call or text, and communicate with my thoughts and feelings. And a lot of times when I did go out to get that oxygen and that air, that's the time where I did reach out to someone that was okay to listen in those brief moments. So yeah, like I said, you always have the power. You're the one that's holding that power, and if you find that you're in a situation where it's out of your control, know that you always have the control. Or at least the one thing that I've learned in my recovery is the only thing that I can control is how do I react and respond to the situations that happen to me. And I have that power of choice. And sometimes the choice is leaving the situation. And other times the choice is staying there, understanding my objective and my why, and contributing it. And a lot of times what I'll say also is, in early sobriety, you'll notice a lot of people drinking. I would try to notice what else they're doing. Notice the conversations. Notice people laughing. Notice the smiling. Those are the things that I see now in sobriety that I couldn't see it in my early sobriety. That over time, I hope you'll be able to see those too. Max, you're on mute.
Did it again. Brock, that was just gorgeous. And I also just love the way you're so grounded in these practices. It might not always feel that way for you, but gosh, you sound it. And so you don't sacrifice your self-care for anything. And I love your little tip about the fountain of youth. Find the kids, find the pets, right? That's my go-to. Pets first, kids second. And I just love that because it's so true. Because when I was a kid, certainly the bored adult that wanted to hang with me, I was so happy. So it's really just a win-win in those situations. So thank you for all of that wisdom, Brock. One thing we've kind of been talking about without talking about it is boundaries. When we hear the word boundaries, we might first come up with physical boundaries like a fence. But in fact, we're talking about personal boundaries, those limits and rules we set for ourselves within relationships. And in recovery, you're just always working on boundaries. It doesn't end. In my opinion, it's boundaries 101 followed by 201 followed by 301. And so Lita, I want to come around to you with your incredible experience. And I want to ask you about a time that maybe you successfully set or maintained your boundaries around the holiday, or just how you view personal boundaries in general as you navigate your recovery.
Hi, thank you, Max. Hi, everybody. Early on in my recovery, I didn't know what a boundary was. And so it was really hard for me because I was such a people person. Pete and I did a lot of people pleasing. So I would go to different my functions, and I would either hang out in the kitchen, so I can be busy, I kept a phone number in case I needed to holler at somebody and say, oh, I'm not feeling good right here. Help me through this. I found having a network, or at least having one, if not two people that I can just holler at and be like, hey, you know, how did you do this? Or, you know, somebody who had a little bit more experience than I did at that time was able to, you know, help me to get through those really difficult moments. And they were moments. They didn't last for like long, or they weren't really bad. Fortunately, I did live, you know, like 1,500 miles from my family. So it was a lot easier for me because they were more, I don't know. And I think it was just kind of cool that I was finally around. You know, I didn't have that, you know, I read in the thing, if somebody was saying somebody was judgmental or whatever, they weren't. And if they weren't loud or, you know, vocal with it. So I just stayed busy. I stayed busy in the kitchen. Oh yeah, I'll take that. Oh no, I'll get that. You know, and for the years that I wasn't there and I wasn't present, it made me be a part of, but then I didn't have to kind of try to force a conversation. I didn't have to, you know, kind of to people please. I could just, well, and I guess it was people pleasing, but I was really being of service. And that just helped me to be present and not a hostage stuck in one spot. So kitchen was always the place.
While we're trying to find the kids or the pets, we also might have, for some of us, the kitchen to kind of just stay away from everyone else who might be doing their own thing, but you're in there and you're helping, you're participating, you're being part of the holiday, but you're in the kitchen where you feel safe and good and where your boundaries can stay intact. So I absolutely love that. Lita, anyone else on personal boundaries or any specific, you know, memories they might have about making them, maintaining them? Anything else come to y'all?
I
Yeah,
just,
for me, oh,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah.
No, please, John, go ahead.
So one phrase that I learned from a prior sponsor was just simply, I'll get back to you. I'm much like a lot of you, I'm a people pleaser by nature, and I've slowly had to change that. And so someone asked me something and my immediate thought is, oh yeah, yes. And just rewiring my brain to go from, yes, sure, anytime, jump how high, to let me think about that and get back with you, or just, I'll get back to you. And that really gives me a little pause and lets my brain kind of ponder it and say, is this right for me? Is this healthy for my recovery? Then maybe talk with a trusted spiritual advisor, a sponsor, a friend about that and say, hey, someone asked me about this. What do you think? And that's been a really helpful way to set up boundaries for me that are healthy in my recovery.
Oh, I love that. Let me get back to you. Let me think about it. It's kind, it's affirming. I love it, John. Thank you. Suzanne, did you have one you wanted to throw in there?
Well, it's funny because I thought of something that I learned early in recovery too, but it might be like boundaries 23-35 instead of 01, because John, you were like, yours is so lovely. But I thought of like somebody told me no is a complete sentence, right? Like no is, you know, you don't owe no, I'm so sorry, but you know, explanations. It's like no, and it's okay. And it can be really you know, really affirming to learn how to say no, especially if you are, like probably most of us, a people pleaser, or, you know, want to help even when you are so overextended, you can't even help anymore. So I always remind myself that no is a complete sentence, and we have to practice saying it so that we can get good at it. I know I did.
Oh, absolutely. No is a full sentence. And let me get back to you on that. I love it. Intrigue on both of them. One thing I want to bring up as well is those uncomfortable conversation and exchanges with Aunt Sally that might be coming along with the season. And so when, you know, preparing for these uncomfortable conversations and exchanges, which could range from, you still drinking? to handing you a drink, to you still on those pills, and wanting to talk to you about the medication that you are taking without your consent. What can you do? And I just wanted to throw out there to rehearse for these situations. There's nothing wrong with that. I will rehearse having tough conversations with my partner or my friends before the event, being assertive and not defensive. Again, I love those lines of let me think on it, let me get back to you on that, that assertive but not defensive, way of doing that, and having excuses ready. Certainly I always have an excuse ready. I very rarely use them. I'm in that kind of tender 5-year sobriety where I'm like waiting for the opportunity to tell everyone I'm sober. I wasn't like that in the beginning. In fact, I also didn't tell people for a while, Brock, kind of what you were saying, until I was comfortable to embody that. And so, having your excuses ready, and that it can be from the absolute truth, right, down to, whatever you feel like comfortable saying. And some examples of that could be, I'm on antibiotics. I am taking it easy this year. I mean, really, there's a range. And a lot of the time for me, I know I got prepared, and then in the moment, it was actually a lot easier. I have one of those brains that'll make things a little bit, more anxious than they need to be. I don't know if that vibes with any of y'all. A couple times we've been mentioning exit plans and when to say no, when to leave, when to hit the kitchen, when to hit the kids. Wait, when to go hang out with the kids, when to hang out with the pets, and when to leave, quite frankly. And John, I am coming over to you, and I want to ask you about those superhero abilities to leave a situation, those exit plans for holiday gatherings. How do you feel about them? And have you ever used them?
Thank you, Max. I think it's really important to kind of have a firm stop time on when you want to leave or when you want to get out of a situation. And I think it's really important to talk about during the holidays, but it was really important for me in my early recovery. I think in any situation where, you might feel a little uneasy, or you might be around alcohol or drugs. I mean, I would tend to stay away from those situations if I could, especially in early sobriety. But if they're, like Brock talked about earlier, if there's an objective and you need to be somewhere, like let's say I had a 20-year reunion. I'm dating myself a little bit, but for high school, a couple summers ago, and I went into that, it was at a bar and I wasn't drinking. And so I had a plan, I talked with my kind of spiritual team. I know a lot of people have a sponsor or a friend or an advisor. I'm sicker than most, so I need a whole team of people. And I do that because if I'm really in a rough situation or I'm really in a bad headspace, I want to be able to reach out to a couple different people and call them in the moment. If I call my sponsor, he might be busy and he might not pick up. So I want to have person B, C, and D on deck to kind of have different people that I can go to in times of need. So I think having that, person is important, and having more than that person, having a team is even better. In terms of actually having a firm timetable, a lot of that will depend on, are you going somewhere alone? Are you getting a ride from someone? I would definitely encourage setting out and communicating what would be ideal for you beforehand. If you're riding with someone, if you're riding with your parent, Aunt Sally's, maybe say, hey mom, what time do you think would be good to leave? And then when it maybe approaches that time, addressing that and bringing that up, and just kind of having defined set boundaries on that could really help. Another thing, and it's not as much of an exit strategy, but like something that I try and practice, is just remembering that it's, kind of what Brock talked about, like, what do I bring to this? What's the objective? But also, how can I make this situation better? How can I make Christmas better this year? How can I make Thanksgiving more tolerable for others? And one way I can do that is by practicing acts of kindness, just random acts of kindness, whether that's taking the trash out without being asked, or hanging out with the little cousin that is, wants that big, goofy, awkward adult to hang out with him and hang out there. There's so many ways you can do it. Just giving someone a compliment. You know, there's countless ways I can do that. And when I do those things, I get out of my head and I get in a space of love and tolerance and kindness. And that's the space I want to be in. And then lastly, I saw a comment earlier, you know, about a family member and how distressing they were. And one thing that I've done and recommended to sponsees and other people is just praying for them. It might not feel authentic at first, praying for that person that you're not super fond of, but if you do pray, I would recommend praying for that person over time. I've kind of set a rule of do it for a couple weeks, pray for someone for 2 weeks, pray for someone every day for a month. Even if you don't meet it on that first day, by the last day, by that 30th day, you might have a different perspective on them. And I don't know the power behind that. It's above my pay grade, but I think it's true and I think it's helpful. So I think just maybe if you know there's someone that you've clashed with in the past, maybe try praying for them before. And also just reminding yourself, this is something that I do, that other people are sick too. Just because people aren't in recovery or don't consider themselves someone that is affected by substance use disorder, that doesn't mean they don't have problems. That doesn't mean that they don't have sicknesses and their own form of, you know, instability and mental non-well-being, if you will. And so just remembering that everyone's going through their own thing and trying to keep that in mind and being tolerant and kind to others is really helpful. And then lastly, I think a lot of these have been touched on, but I think it's important to realize that there's a couple expectations that are going to happen. And like, I would expect to be uncomfortable my first or second holiday season. And, you know, Carrie touched on it in the feelings, but like, those are hard, but that's okay. It's okay to feel hurt. It's okay to feel sad. It's not healthy to dwell on it and to, you know, throw the self-pity party. But it's okay to have whatever feeling you're having, and eventually it will pass. It's a moment, and eventually you'll feel different. And that's been my experience. And then lastly, I think this is important too, is know that it will get easier. If this is your first holiday season, doing things different, trying to really putting an effort into being sober or not using, it could be tough, but it will get easier. And doesn't mean that life won't keep coming at me, but it means that I'll have tools and I'll have experiences that are healthy. And in 2 years, I'll be able to look back and say, oh, I've got these last 2 years. And I remember this happened last year. So maybe I can use these past experiences to grow from and to be the best version of myself. I'm trying to be brief. It's a struggle for me, but I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you, Max.
That was so chock full of information and suggestions in such a short amount of time, John. Thank you. Volunteering, yes, especially I thought of that one for, especially if you might have some alone time. You know, what's your local community doing? Are there kind of things that you can do to volunteer, to give back? There's nothing that will, I swear, there's nothing better that like takes your own grief and stuff off of you, is to help others and get that feeling of volunteering, especially around the holidays when folks need it. And praying for folks, meditating on folks, like whatever feels good to you. Absolutely. Just putting kind of that energy out. I myself think works wonders too. So thank you for all of that, John. And you gave me the perfect segue talking about new traditions, new rituals. My favorite part of the holidays is creating those new sweetnesses to give yourself. And I'm going to come over to Carrie now and ask you about your new traditions, your new rituals, and what you get up to.
So much fun. I know when you and I were talking, Max, about, you know, new traditions, I was thinking, well, I don't have any new traditions. And it's funny because I heard the other day when somebody was talking about traditions, and they're like, traditions is just peer pressure from dead people. And I thought that was so funny and so true in so many ways, because I think that there is this idea that we have to do things the way we've always done things, right? And so that was my first thing I want to say. If you are new, especially if you are new in recovery, you don't have to do things the way you've always done them. If you're in any of life transition this year, you don't have to do things the way you've always done them. It can look different this year. And so that is one of my favorite traditions that I have, is that every year I look around at my family and I say, what's good for my family this year? Like, what feels good for my family this year? And it looks different every year, I can tell you. So that's the first thing. That's a tradition that I have, is a non-tradition. One thing though that we have done every year, and I do love a good prop, you know. So I've got this massive mason jar that weighs about 50 pounds. Is that a few years ago, on New Year's Eve, I was newly sober, and New Year's Eve is like really hard for, you know, if you're a minute and a half sober like I was. And my daughter and I were looking for an activity to do on New Year's Eve. And so one of my biggest parts of my recovery is gratitude. I do it every day. I've done it every day for years. I find it keeps me grounded. And it's a great way to start my day. And it's one of the principles that I feel like you can do with your children. So if you're in recovery and you are looking for a way to incorporate, you know, your children into your recovery, I find it's a really great way, because it's something they can understand, and it's something that you can get them in the practice of doing. So a few years ago, on New Year's Eve, we started with a massive mason jar, gratitude jar. And what we would do is every couple of days, or whenever we would just think about it, whenever we had something, when we genuinely felt gratitude for it, we would just pop it into the jar, and, you know, we would just put it in there. And then at the end of the year, on New Year's Eve, the following year, we went through and we read it together. And it was so much fun to do together, she and I, and she was probably 5 or 6 at the time. And so just to read, you know, the gratitude together and see how happy and how much it just lit her up, you know, see how happy she was. I can tell you, she had a lot of gratitude for the cat. So it was about 99% gratitude for the cat is what it was. And that was a beautiful thing to see how much she loved her cat. But it was a really sweet activity. And I think for people, again, who are in recovery and looking for ways that maybe you want to kind of incorporate your kids into it too, it's something that they can really enjoy. So that's my tradition.
And Carrie, I love that you come during crafts and like cheap, accessible little activities for us to do during the holidays for ourselves, with our families. Like I love it. And I certainly have a million jars around the house, certainly not one maybe that size, but you've got a lot of gratitude, Carrie. Absolutely. I am going to open up to a gallery view to see all these amazing panelists and see any other holiday traditions or new rituals that anyone takes part in during their holiday season. Anything new that y'all do?
I think for myself, especially with dealing with loss, around this time, you know, we have Christmas cards or cards that we send out. I think really taking the time to reconnecting those old relationships that we forget throughout the year has been huge for me. Just taking the time to ask how you are. And you might not have, maybe it's only communication through social media, right? But maybe actually write a card out. You know, that's a very special thing. And I think also, I know it's already been said, but like helping others is huge. Getting outside of yourself, donating time to charity. Not everything needs to be financial, or, you know, I have to give someone a ride to the airport at 6 a.m. Ew, that's early, you know, but I'm going to do it, you know, and help out someone other than myself. So those little things do add up, most definitely, around this time.
I love that. Every year I say, you know, I'm going to do Christmas cards next year. But seriously, taking that moment to write out cards is such a lovely kind of heartwarming activity to do.
Yeah,
I've
been doing that similar to what Chris said around, especially around Christmas and the New Year's, thinking like it's a good time to reflect. So something that I do around the holidays is I'll actually pull out my phone and I'll scroll my text all the way to the bottom and be like, who have I not really reached out to that I'm close to in a while? And can there's something I can say to them? You know, I had a friend that lost their son last year. And on Christmas Day, I said I was thinking about him, and I was hoping that he was, having finding some peace on Christmas Day, and I have that, and I can look actually back in my text history of the people that I reached out to, knowing that my life might not be perfect either, but I can almost guarantee that there are just as many people, whether they're sober or not, that have dealt with pain and loss and grief as Chris has mentioned before. And this world has really, has been very divisive lately. And so doing just those little acts and can be, because I remember the next time I saw that guy in my home group, he just said how much it meant to him, and just a little, like, it took me 10 seconds to write that out. And just think like those little things, and even just and to John's point as well, to the prayer and meditation, you're putting yourself in this act of thinking of others. You'll start to see yourself in a different light potentially, and that I think that the benefits go both ways. I see that pretty much in my life.
Love that, Brock. Yes. All right. Y'all, and I just want to take a moment. If you have a question for any of my panelists, please go ahead and put it in the chat, either on YouTube, we'll get them over, or here on Zoom. I know I am curious to ask y'all your favorite NA holiday beverage. What's your go-to when you're looking to have something in your hands, for the holidays, to feel a little bit secure there, or you need to bring your own to certain parties. What's your favorite? Mine is ginger beer. It's a non-alcoholic kind of ginger ale. It's just called ginger beer. And it's one of my favorite go-tos. I bring it with me if I have to go somewhere, and it's just kind of that little safety for me to have something that's special. It's not necessarily about, LARPing, drinking per se, but just having something that's all mine. And so, does anyone else have kind of a go-to beverage? Oh, I see apple cider rocking it in the chat. Yes. Eggnog, I feel complicated about. All right, what about you?
I'm always pretty simple. What I always take to parties is I'm a Diet Coke girl, which is just, I like, because nobody ever has, so I always take it. But also I do, because everyone knows my holidays are alcohol free, I like to do like a little beverage station with sodas and different like syrups, flavored syrups, and like lemons and limes and fruits and like herbs to go in them, and everyone loves it so much nobody even thinks about not having like the alcohol, and you get this fun drink and you can make it what you want. I love doing that. So
I love that.
I love a nice hot beverage, and for me it is apple cider with a cinnamon stick and those little red Imperials. So good.
Yes, got team apple cider, team eggnog. They could really, duke it out. Anyone else?
Well, Max, since you asked,
I have a feeling you've
Since
got
you
a drink for us.
I might have a drink for you. If anybody is looking and is extra, a few years ago, I came across a recipe for a turmeric latte. And when I realized that it helps with liver function, and I thought maybe I could repair myself, I decided I was going to make about 100 of these a week around the holiday. And they're really delicious, but you need the secret is you need fresh turmeric, a hand frother, and a cheesecloth. And so when you buy all those things, your family will think you're crazy. So they'll leave you alone for the rest of the holiday party, which is the good thing. That's the secret here, people. But it's a really fun drink to make and it's really good for you. I love anything that's like a warm kind of specialty drink, because just because we don't drink alcoholic beverages doesn't mean we don't want something fancy and warm in our hands at a party. And I would also say, especially for folks who are newly in recovery, bring something with you if you need to. Like, bring something that's going to make you feel good drinking it. Bring something, don't assume that the people are going to have a drink for you at the party. Bring something that makes you feel special that you're going to want to drink, whether it's a turmeric latte or any other beverage. So that's my hot tip.
So good. And there's some turmeric tea recognition in the chat. I see some people for Dr. Pepper, coffee, absolutely, whatever it takes, to again be sweet to yourself during the holidays. And which also begs the question, has anyone ever gotten the perfect sober gift? What do you buy someone in recovery besides a hand frother so you can make turmeric lattes? Well, y'all, we have a gift guide. Oh, SodaStream, Lisa, thank you very much. Yes, what sober person doesn't want endless amounts of carbonated water. Literature, I love that. Yes, reading. Very good. Anyone else got some ideas? When we're asking for Santa and for those in recovery on our lists, anything related to self-care, absolutely. Oh, here they come. Journals, blanket. Yes. I love this. Again, that sweet, sweet self-care. All right.
I love that journals idea. That's great. And I was thinking food is always welcome. Snacks are always a good gift.
Absolutely. Yes. Snacks have helped me stay sober since 2016. So yeah, absolutely snacks. Anything else? 1 year, I think it was my first year. I do want to openly admit I got sober in February, so I feel like I cheated. Or some part of me knew, like, you're going to need a couple months, buddy. So you're going to get sober right after the holidays. But I do remember going into my first sober holiday, and I got this sweet little thing from my mom, and it was just a little, gosh, I don't know what you call it, just a little piece of jewelry, maybe a little keychain kind of that said 1 year sober. And it was just so little, but it was like the sweetest acknowledgement. And I think it was in my stocking, like that. I love that. So anyone, if you're looking for something, getting a soberversary inscribed on a piece of jewelry or something like that, there's all sorts of ways to buy a gift for yourself to celebrate recovery, or to, again, celebrate folks in your life. Plants, Gloria, thank you. Yes, plants are always welcome for sober folks, usually. Any last minute advice or wisdom you would like to drop on us, my panelists? Good luck.
I don't have wisdom, but I just want to remind everybody that, like, to have fun. And a mindfulness practice I love is to just look for the positive things, even if something negative is happening, right? So even if, like, Aunt Sally is like questioning you, like, kind of remember to take a step back and look around and be like, wow, I'm in recovery, and that's a miracle in itself. And I'm in this place. And so just try to stay in gratitude and the awe of, like, all of it, right? Like, because it's amazing. It's an amazing journey. It's an amazing journey.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you to all the members in the audience for allowing us to be part of your journey. We are truly, truly honored to be here with you. And I know whatever we can do to help, we want to help you. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, John, I really appreciate you saying that. Absolutely. Obviously, y'all, I am a very lucky person. I get to work with so many folks, just wonderful, brilliant folks here at Workit, but also folks in recovery. This is just a small sampling of the folks that are in recovery, working at Workit, behind the scenes, and with members. And so this is a great moment to just, take this all in and know that, you've got folks that are in recovery working for you very hard to make sure that your recoveries are successful. And so there's the gift guide in the chat, and we will also put this on our YouTube. And here is kind of the inspiration for this particular panel. And this particular link is from our blog. It is from our absolutely fabulous content manager, Elaine. And it has a PDF of all these little tricks of the trade for you to get through the holidays. So you have a little something to take with you. And again, I want to thank all of my panelists for doing this panel with me and sharing your wisdom, your expertise, and your lived experience. And a special thank you to the 2023 ambassadors who helped me promote this event. And I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season, y'all. It works if you work it, so let's work it together. Thank you again, y'all. And take care.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank
Yes.
you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
See you soon, y'all.